So hi, I'm Stu Alden.
And I'm Georgina Wilson Ayalara. And together we present Advance to Contract, the podcast series where we explore how SMEs can break into, engage with and secure contracts in the UK defence sector.
So join us as we share insights, strategies and real-world experiences to help you navigate this very complex but at the same time rewarding market. So welcome back to Advance to Contract, the podcast that helps innovative engineering and technology businesses navigate the defence sector and, most importantly, win work. I'm Stu, and with me is Georgina.
Hello.
Welcome back, Georgina.
Thank you.
Today we're talking about how you might go about translating your product or service offering, indeed, from another sector into defence and making sure that you're fully prepared for market entry. In other words, we're not just talking about demonstrating your capability, but we're talking about proving your credibility.
Hi everyone. So if you're an SME from another sector, say motorsport, automotive or nuclear, and you have not worked in defence before, this episode is for you. How do you prove you can deliver without a track record in this sector? Do you need one? So Stu, let's start with some opening questions, shall we? Why do defence buyers put so much emphasis on capability alongside technical capability?
Yeah, I think there's a number of points there. So let's start with safety. Safety is critical in defence, obviously. You're dealing with the forces and the use of quite complex technology and equipment. Also, we're talking about affordability. So there needs to be the emphasis on whether that company can actually deliver to cost. It's the public purse after all. So we've got to be careful that we're actually delivering good value to the taxpayer. And also the fact that a company needs to be around for the delivery of not only the product into service, but also supporting that technology as it is delivered as well. So there's a number of factors, I think, that we need to consider, and you really need to build that credibility through delivery.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah, good to know, Stu. What are your thoughts on what makes defence procurement so risk adverse compared to potentially other sectors? Yeah,
in my mind, I guess defence shouldn't be risk adverse, but it is, and perhaps that is down to the fact that there is so much scrutiny. The National Audit Office oversees everything that defence does, so that it has to make sure that it's delivering best value for money. But also in terms of the risk factor, the company that is letting the contract, be that whether that's sort of the organisation that's letting the contract, be that the MOD or a prime, needs to make sure that it is putting its money where it's going to get best value. So it has to trust that organisation and they have to have credibility. This is why we tend to see a lot of organisations using the same suppliers. Defence is a very relationship-driven business, and they will use the same suppliers because they trust them and they've worked with them before, and therefore they know what they're going to get. So if you're trying to break into this sector, it's critical that you start to build that credibility and relationships in order to get that trust.
So as I remember from our first episode, trust is the currency, isn't it? It's one of our closing reflections.
Absolutely.
And what would be your advice for those new in defence in terms of the biggest challenge to getting noticed?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's just one. Put it that way. Challenges. I think we can use the plural. We talked about relationship driven. You've got to find the right people to speak to first, whether that's in the MOD or whether that's in the primes or tier ones. Build those relationships and actually understand what organisations need. You need to be solving the problems that an organisation is having. So you need to be providing a solution to their need. I think you also need to understand where you're positioned in the supply chain. So are you selling to MOD? Are you selling to the tier ones and the primes? Or are you maybe further down the supply chain? Equally as important, but making sure that you are not knocking on a door that doesn't need your product, so that you're using your time effectively. And also, you need to be able to understand. A big challenge is understanding where those opportunities lie. So we'll talk a bit about how you can find out more information about where those opportunities later on in the episode.
That's good. Oh, good one too. Yeah.
So, question for you, Georgina. So, on the technical capability side, how do defence buyers understand what technical capability they're being sort of offered, and why do they put so much emphasis on that credibility of that organisation?
Well, I think for me, it all comes down to the requirements and the compliance matrix. I think the compliance matrix is a really useful tool, even in the very early stages of like the early market engagement and in capture phase. Even have an indicative compliance matrix which has all the technical requirements implied and stated, unstated, explicit, all the types of requirements, so that we can like take those requirements through the procurement process. I think that's really useful. And then any touch point with the customer, those requirements and technical like capabilities can be discussed, tested, and then woven into the like solution. I think that gives maybe if any of those are the touch points, if it's, if there's potential to demonstrate capability or demonstrate readiness, even in a conversation or maybe an RFI response, depending where you are in the process. I think that gives credibility.
So they're two key documents in any submission to a buyer. They're asking you to deliver a certain requirement, which they've laid down in the requirement set, and you are putting together that compliance matrix to match that requirement set. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, ideally, even before that tender document has come out, we've had some involvement in influencing that requirement in the procurement. I mean, that's the ideal situation, which, as we know, we don't always get into that position. But I think it's important to note and reflect on that before the tender document comes out, there's been a mountain of work that's gone on with the customer to develop that requirement set.
Okay. It's like we said before about once the tenders come out, it's too late.
Yes.
So you've got to build those relationships beforehand. Okay. Sounds good. So let's talk about translating that technical expertise then.
So how can companies take that experience that we've just touched on from sectors, from motorsport or automotive or nuclear, and move that into like relevant defence case studies? Yeah,
sure. So I think one thing that's been talked about a lot recently is dual use technology. So you've proven yourself in another sector. You mentioned motorsport, you mentioned nuclear, might be automotive, might be oil and gas. But that technology has proven itself in delivering and performing well in that sector. You are then building that case study to demonstrate that you could actually transfer that over into the defence sector. Done quite a lot of work previously on technology transfer, and it's all about understanding the performance requirements within the target sector and then translating that case study accordingly. So, for defence, for example, if you're coming from motorsport operates in quite harsh environments. So does defence. So you can translate that. You are in motorsport. You've got quite harsh duty cycles in terms of the way that the equipment is used, and the driver drives the vehicle quite harshly. The same way that the soldiers, airmen and sailors sort of utilise the equipment quite harshly as well. So you're already starting to see that you've got that transfer of use in an alternate sector. You may not have worked in defence, but you've certainly delivered technology that is performing in those areas. So I think that's key.
How would that work in terms of like is that a case of giving examples? So I guess thinking about like bid writing, would that be writing up an example, or is there like a proof of concept that a business could do internally to demonstrate that?
I think there's where you talked there about engaging with the customers early. There is proof of concepts that you can put in front of a client or a customer. Often before a tender comes out, they're quite open to engaging. It's once the commercial process starts that they start to sort of maybe draw back a bit, and because of the competition aspect, and they've got to be fair to everybody. So that's why it's so important to understand who the right people are to talk to, that you can demonstrate that capability. Maybe it's in a different environment and how it works and how it operates, how you've designed it, how you support it, that they can start to then translate that in their own minds to how that would operate in defence. So very important.
That's very good. Is I guess looking at your like stakeholder map work that you've done, is there like a part of the defence organisation that specialises in synergies between sectors? Yeah,
so I think it depends where you are on the TRL, so the technology readiness level line. If you're looking at research and development, you're probably targeting the likes of DSTL, the scientific and technology laboratories, or maybe the Defence and Security Accelerator. That tends to operate around TRL 3 or 4 up to maybe 6, so that you've got that low-level technology that you think is proving in another environment, but you can then translate it across to defence. And there is the opportunity also to engage with the end user. So there are organisations within the military that enable you to engage with military personnel to utilise your equipment and give their feedback. But it's all about finding those organisations and finding the right people to speak to. But it's better to have someone who is a sponsor or sees your capability as a benefit to the organisation, and that will help you as you bid, because you can make reference to that in your bid.
Yeah, that's brilliant, isn't it? It goes back to that relationship as
absolutely
you touch on. Yeah. I mean, it may be a side step. It's a really interesting conversation, Stu. But I guess what would be your advice to like the SMEs? Because I've seen this before, like working with the SME community, where you don't want to do that work at risk. You mentioned like the proof of concept stuff, which is really useful. Yeah. But perhaps there's, like, as we know, limited resources, limited budgets. How would you decide like which
avenue to go down? You're right. We don't always have, as SMEs, an endless pot of money to spend on research and development. But there are ways to develop that. There are various grant funding routes. Mentioned DASA before. DASA is really good, Defence and Security Accelerator, in terms of it funds its programs to 100%. Often under the other government funding schemes like the UK Research and Innovation Team, UKRI, it's maybe 70% funded for SMEs. I think find those organisations that can maybe help you financially. Also looking at partners that may be able to assist. So if you're talking to a larger organisation that has a specific need and has a R&D budget, that may be able to look at helping you to develop your capability because they've got a need for it in their end system, then that's also another way to get it funded. But yeah, I totally understand as an owner of an SME myself that we don't have endless buckets of money. So it's important to seek those out.
Yeah. And I think before we move on to having like the end contract with like the MOD or the Prime, there's sometimes I've seen it where the work done under that is not off-the-shelf solution. So that's from scratch, which is fine. But then there's always that IP debate then, isn't there, kind of thing?
It sounds like a whole new episode.
It does that,
IP. Yeah. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. Okay.
Yeah, it's good ones too. Yeah.
So, and we've touched on that in terms of how you engage with an organisation. And a lot of it is about speaking the right language. So why do you think it's important to sort of speak in defence language rather than just listing your technical capability or skill sets as an organisation?
Well, it comes back to the trust, doesn't it? The way to build a trust is to speak to the language of like the community we're working with or aiming to work with. So definitely from like a trust perspective, I think that's really important. I think right from the start of the engagement, there's always the need to have the trust, but also develop readiness.
Readiness ability.
Yeah,
yes.
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, the readiness.
Yeah.
So again, by speaking the language, it becomes easier for the stakeholder community to understand, isn't it, the value?
Yeah.
And as you said at the start of this episode, we need to demonstrate that value for that community, for the purse strings, as it were.
Yeah.
I think understanding the way the customer and the organisation talk, and then converting that into the bid writing submission with the customer language is really key.
So what you're trying to do is make it easy for someone to read and understand, rather than every sector has its different languages, and we all have our different acronyms. Defence is really bad for acronyms.
It is,
but motorsport, oil and gas, the medical sector, whatever it is, has their own language and acronyms that they use. Make sure that you are translating those into what somebody can understand. I used to work with a lot of individuals that were coming out of the military and writing their CVs. What they used to put on there was they were Sergeant so-and-so in the 11th Battalion, this, that and the other, and this is what they did. Doesn't really translate into civilian environment. So maybe they should have put that they were a senior manager responsible for a team of 10, 12 people, and this is the type of activities that they undertook.
Yes.
A lot easier for someone to read and understand than if you're putting it into the language of the reader.
Definitely. And it feels like it de-risks that decision then, doesn't it, to go for that person or go for that supplier. I automatically think, oh, well, this is a lower risk option because they're already talking my language.
And also they've done their homework.
Yes.
They've looked, it's like anybody, if you go on a job interview, one of the first questions you get asked is, what do you know about our company? And if you turn around and say, well, nothing, then it doesn't really give you much credibility. So if you've done that investigation first, I think it helps to build that rapport. And I always say people buy from people. If you build that relationship, then it makes it a lot easier to start talking about technology and capability as you go through.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think, in other words, we've kind of concluded that it's not about the relevance of your technology offering just. It's about the fact that you can explain why it matters most to the end customer, how your capability adds value. And how you can help them to solve their pain point to maybe their end customer, because you might not be selling to the end customer for that product. You might be lower down that supply chain. So if you can help them, it's great.
Yeah, it's understand. I suppose on that, Stu, I was thinking about one of the templates we're working on, that the capture plan piece. Like you say, it's about understanding the whole ecosystem, isn't it, of like where we're working. So it could take a lot more time to do, but 100% worth.
Absolutely
needed.
Yeah. Prior preparation is always good.
Thought it may be.
Absolutely. So sort of taking all that into account, how would you suggest, and you talked about the capture plan activity, how would you suggest using the customer insights that you get from talking to people to shape your bid and how you submit that to the customer?
It's a really good one, isn't it? I think the key thing is to, as we said, just list who is involved at all the various, like, I guess from very many years on, someone once told me it was like the stakeholder onion.
Right.
And I always remember that. Some people say, and as you peel it away, there's various more.
Doesn't make you cry. No?
Does not make you, well, it may do, depending on the engagement, which hopefully shouldn't. And each one has, so I guess, for example, if we look at procurement, so for this one program, procurement may want to have the cost savings, have their own target, but then you, as you know, have engineering, they've got their own technical performance or requirements, what they're looking for. So it's about understanding all of those and listing them down, and we'll provide a template to help with this. And then you move on to like, well, if you, maybe for a workshop, if you were in that person's role or position, how, what does your world look like? Okay. What are your pain points?
So thinking like your customer.
Yes, thinking like your customer at that very detailed level.
Right.
And then combining that with the insights from the BDM activities, business development, and customer relationship, and bringing all that together into, I guess, what we would refer to as like win themes.
Yeah. Okay.
Which will then go into.
So how do you work as a capture manager to make sure that you are gathering all that information? What sort of activities do you need to do as that individual?
It comes down really to having that capture plan. Could be on the one pager or full blown document of like 70 PowerPoint deck, 70 pages.
Right.
But in very clear, purposeful, intentional activities that work towards, I guess, the end goal of winning the contract.
Okay.
So,
but you're going across other company stakeholders, aren't you? Within your own company, you're gathering that information from those people, aren't you? How do you make sure that they're going out there to gather that information that you need to submit a very successful bid?
I think workshops have worked quite well.
Okay.
So bringing together people, like you said, for across the businesses to understand like what insights they've already gleaned from like the customer meeting or industry event or whatever, putting on the hat of the customer and brainstorming from that angle. Also looking at it, I guess we'll touch on this separately, but from a competitor perspective, we'd call potentially the black hat or call it some form of colour review where we look at the competitor's position and what they may be doing. So again, based on assumptions, but justifiable assumptions or assumptions that have a rationale attached to it. So it's not just, finger in the air, as it were.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, just gaming.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, and it's something that, strangely enough, it's something that the defence environment is very used to. It's that wargaming side.
Yeah.
So you're using or looking at your competitor maybe as an adversary and kind of second guessing what they might do and making sure that you're always ahead of the game.
Yes, definitely that.
Okay.
That sounds also like another episode.
Yeah, it does, yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I think we said in summary that speaking the defence language is all about linking our capability to what the client is looking for, what they need, putting it in the language that they understand. We are making sure that we're delivering something that is reliable, it's safe, it's well priced, and that it's solving that requirement that you said that is laid down in the requirements document, and that you've articulated it correctly in your compliance matrix that you're feeding back, and that enables you to put in a really solid bid and maybe answer all the questions that they're looking to tick and give you the high score. So proving value, I think summarising it, we're proving value to operational performance, and that enables you to prove your credibility.
On accreditations and assurance and compliance, I guess what baseline accreditation should SMEs have, Stu, and prioritise to be taken seriously in defence? Yeah,
so I think there's sort of starting at the basics, and we can think about three main areas really. One is quality, which is usually articulated within ISO standards. So for any engineering or technology organisation that is looking to work in the defence sector, they should have ISO 9001 as a base. That's a given, and that's what we often see on submissions to buyer portals. Is they always ask for that accreditation and your certificate. So that's the quality side. Something that is becoming more and more important, and quite rightly so, is cybersecurity. So there is the Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus accreditation, which is again required, and certification that is conducted every year annually, and just make sure that you've got all the right systems and processes in place to make sure that data security is key. Obviously very important within defence environment. And then also on the commercial side, something called JOSCAR, which is the Joint Operational Supply Chain Accreditation Register that I managed to remember, I think.
Good.
It is basically there's a number of buyers that have signed up to this accreditation, and it's a way of you submitting information that all of those buyers can access. So things like your insurances, insurance levels, your annual accounts, so that they can do due diligence on you financially. Also submitting a sort of a top level capability statement. So all of that is then searchable via a buyer. So be that General Dynamics or BAE Systems or MBDA, who have signed up to the JOSCAR system, can actually search for what they're looking for. So I think that's what I would suggest are the three key areas to look at.
I think it's great to have those set up, isn't it? How do they, or why are they so important? Do you think, Stu, from M&D perspective?
Yeah, so I think both from M&D and the primes, it proves that you're serious about engaging in this sector, that you have done your homework, you understand what the end customer needs, and that there is also a level of due diligence that has been done to you by an external agency, and therefore that we talked about risk, that helps to reduce that risk and give that credibility.
So if we move on to, I guess, another element of compliance, security clearances.
Yeah.
Like, what is like the baseline for that?
Yeah. So security clearance, it's a lot of very murky in terms of what is required and what isn't required. Often you'll get told by a prime that is told by the MOD in what we call a security aspects letter, or a SAL, which tends to identify the level of security requirements that are needed by the supply chain. As you said, the basic level is what's called BPSS, and that is it's a reasonably simple check. It's sort of a DBS check, criminal records check, and right to work in the UK, that side of life, and that's usually can be done between about 4 to 6 weeks. A pretty basic check. I would suggest that any organisation that is working in defence and wants to engage with organisations to deliver product or services should start looking at BPSS for their individuals, and then you can go up the chain. So you could look at SC, which is up to the next level. So that then allows you to start to access around secret level, and then you can go into develop vetting, DV, which is a whole aspect of deeper engagement and clearance. But you'd be told whether you needed that or not. So I would suggest BPSS as a minimum. Yeah,
that's good to know. And I guess in terms of like the other accreditations that you mentioned, what's your recommendation to SMEs on that? Is that something that is needed for day one of contract award, or as a bid submission?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. JOSCAR and Cyber Essentials, as a minimum, I would work towards those now if you're serious about working in defence, because if you don't have them by contract award, that may delay you, or you may be required to show that before you kick everything off. So yeah, definitely work towards it now. It's not both of them are not hugely expensive, and they give you a lot of credibility. Yeah.
I think we're also planning to work on a cyber.
Yeah, and a separate episode.
Separate episodes, that would be
absolutely,
that'd be useful.
So from your perspective, from bidding,
yep.
How do those accreditations feed into the bid that you then submit once you've got them? How do they add value to that bid?
Well, like you say, compliance is, I suppose, as you've said, isn't it? It's about the trust.
Yeah.
Again, trust is one of the key words, and again about being ready. I guess from a MOD or the prime perspective, they want to know we're ready to go and we're a trusted supplier. So by having these, that is just another sign that we're ready.
Done your homework.
We've done homework, ready to go. So yeah, definitely from that bid eligibility, perspective. I think we often see from an MOD view and procurement process, we need that in the like a PQQ submission. Sometimes it can be a pass or fail, can't it?
So pre-qualification questionnaire.
Yes, thank you. So if it is needed at that point, I suppose that's another. Or then if not, then later we can.
And that gets you through the door to further steps within the bidding process.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So yes, that's one. But yeah, like I say, I guess it depends on that procurement process, whether it's pass or fail, or if it's accepted that, if there's a plan
that
to
you're
get
working
it.
towards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it
Okay.
depends.
Cool. Okay. So compliance and assurance, tick.
Tick. Yeah.
People and process. So that's another area that we're looking at. So yeah, what do we think about that area?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? 'Cause it feels like experience is needed, obviously. Definitely, that's why we're all here. So how much weight do you think the MOD community put on to experience from buyers? Yeah,
I think they want to know that whoever's delivering the capability that's going to be put in the hands of troops is reliable, it's safe, it's supportable, you can train with it. So they want to understand that their defence suppliers have read and delivered to the requirement set that you talked about before. I've worked in the MOD where we've taken equipment that's been delivered by an industry partner and run it through what we call verification validation. So we're doing a lot of trials and testing. And the compliance matrix that you talked about before was exactly what we used to list the requirement and then understand what tests we were going to do to prove that requirement. And then within the compliance matrix, we would identify the threshold levels of compliance that you needed. And that became a tick exercise for the MOD. So they were making sure that whatever requirement they had set was being delivered, and literally went through the requirements document line by line to make sure that there was evidence. And it's key that you give evidence of your testing, be that data or be that physical evidence, that you've actually passed that requirement. So I think that's key. And also, I think the MOD or a prime will look for, we talked about case studies before, would look at prior case studies that you maybe have delivered before, and that's going to give you some credibility as well. So yeah, it's important to have that experience and show it.
Yeah, let's see. What are your thoughts on, I guess, when that's potentially, I guess, thinking again on having the case studies is like one thing that you say can draw on other experience, which is fine. So I guess on the notes too of the testing and validation point, have you seen a trend towards the MOD having or accepting that OneSyn contract, or is that a precursor to like being in a full-on contract?
I mean, some contracts they will expect you to deliver that data and evidence as part of the bidding process. In other procurement processes that I've seen, organisations will get down selected through the bidding process to maybe 2 or 3 organisations that then have a bit of a shoot off basically to undertake some trials, and the MOD will pay for those trials generally, but there is quite a bit of work to be done up front to make sure you put yourself in the best position to be down selected for those further trials. So yes, there has to be a bit of a balance between putting the effort in up front versus the reward that you'll get downstream. Yeah, definitely.
It's very hard, isn't it? And again, a view of, especially with like a resource constrained situation, how fair that is to request. It seems quite high. My reflection on the year of 2025 is it feels like the customer has become more demanding and wanting, which is rightfully so, to that trust. But then with less resources from an industry perspective, and that is going to be a difficult thing going into the new year.
Absolutely. I think before the MOD used to do a lot of development internally, design and development internally. Now it's kind of pushing that back out to industry to come up with a solution that they can then literally buy and procure and take into service. So that does put the emphasis back on talking about people and process. It puts the emphasis back on organisations having the correct people and process in order to do that, and also the funding, which is the critical element. So yeah, defence, you've got to be serious about working in defence. There is a level of investment that you need to put in up front.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep.
So how can, we talked about case studies.
We have.
We talked about making sure that you've got relevant case studies, maybe from other sectors, it may be from your previous work. But how can SMEs adapt case studies that perhaps are from different sectors to tailor them for the defence audiences?
I've seen it work very well when the case study, maybe even on a simple table, you have the case study project description, but then you actually explicitly say, even linked to a requirement in the tender documents, this requirement is, you've got it from maybe that automotive or wherever in this situation, and then this is how we plan to do it here.
Right.
And even if possible, if there's like a risk log submission going in as well, putting it on a risk log and giving it a contingency to show that it's really well thought of in such a detailed
that you maybe haven't got it exactly as they want in that requirement, but you've got a plan to get it there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And if that wants to be backed up by a resource loaded Gantt chart, even better.
We love a Gantt chart.
Yeah, we do.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I suppose we've not touched on like customer feedback, which is something which is which is coming, but I think that's another, like, testimonial is another thing in the bid submission that can help. Even I say if it's from another industry, it's still a user, using that as an example. So I think
you
that
got
would
a
work really
reference
well.
from other sectors.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that sounds good.
Yep.
So we talked about compliance, assurance, talked about people and process, and also the capture process, building that evidence bank before the tender drops. So you've actually got all the information there that you can then tailor and use for your bidding process. And what you're not doing is scrambling for information as the tender lands. So let's give us some practical examples then. We talked a lot of theory. I think let's talk about some practical examples there. Do you want to go into that?
That sounds good, doesn't it? And we will be including some of those tangible. So I think the first one I have on our list is the capture roadmap.
Yep.
So trying to map the journey, or against the journey steps of what, again, using assumptions, what we think that procurement process looks like, and then mapping that on a timeline, and then underneath that having the steps, what we would need to do, and then giving that either to the team or individual, depending on how big the team is. But just so it's clear and set against the timeline. And
working back from the proposal submission date,
Yes, and I guess testing that as well. So making sure, because I think as we know in defence, it can be a long procurement cycle, even though they want to be more snappy, which is the ideal. So in that instance, we need to continually check that the timeline we're thinking and all that is I guess what that means for the customer.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. That's one. I think so. There's that capture roadmap. There's also the preparation of the pitch decks. So I think you work with your clients on helping to develop these for those customer touch points. So having those maybe 80% complete and then just 20% tailored to the customer off, that type of thing would be really effective as well. And the win themes, I know we'll come on to them on other episodes, but we often see those as being, we've understood the customer, and the win theme is that bridge to putting it into the proposal. So very important.
To get that into the offer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So should we go through some examples of that expertise, improving that credibility? One thing that I've seen previously from transferring from for example, the motorsport sector is, and let's take lightweighting, for example, as a good example that translates quite nicely from motorsport into defence, is that defence is always looking for what they call swap, so size, weight and power. They're looking to make sure that they've got the right sized system, that it's the right mass, that it's not overloading whatever platform it goes onto, and it's got the right power either within it or actually the onboard platform can supply that power. So reducing mass and the space envelope and the power requirements of a component is really key for delivery into defence sector, and that's something that motorsport does all the time. You may not have done it as a motorsport organisation within defence, but you can certainly say how you've tailored a particular product or solution for that size, weight and power application. So
that's very good.
I think that's key.
Is there, on that one, Stu, is there anything to do with like manufacturing, like readiness or quickness that can be also learned for motorsport as well?
Yeah. So we talked about technology readiness levels before. You've got manufacturing readiness levels. You've got system readiness levels as well. And then you can articulate that you've got an 80% solution that is being delivered for a particular application in motorsport that can be tweaked in terms of design or maybe material layup, etc. That is then a good solution for defence. So what you're not doing is starting from scratch all the time. So again, dual use technology, taking it from one sector to the next, and proving that it's performed in that other sector. Yeah, that's good.
I think, was there anything on prototyping as well? You had a good one.
Yeah. So I think we touched on it previously about being able to demonstrate credibility, and the best way of doing that is being able to rapidly move from a design to a minimal viable product or MVP. So if you be able to put something in front of a customer for them to trial, even if it's the very basic level, people always like to sort of feel, touch, kick the tires of something in order to understand it. It's far better than having a PowerPoint or a CAD drawing or something of something. And if you can bring that into real life via prototyping, something that automotive and motorsport is very good at, then you stand a good chance of getting that light bulb moment again with your end customer. So yeah, being able to be agile in the way you bring a design to life is really key, and also you'll get a feed in from the end client. They'll say, that's great, but have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? And it allows you to adapt that design and maybe optimize the end solution as well.
Okay. So, I love that. That's very good. Yeah, it's innovative. Yeah, which is really good. Yeah, great.
So let's consider the roadmap for entry into defence. You've got this product. You've thought about your process. You've thought about your capture planning, and you've talked to stakeholders, and you've got their understanding of the problem. You've articulated that. So if you were advising an SME today, what's the basic first step that they should take when they're entering the defence sector? What's that? With regards to the capture roadmap, what do you think that first step is?
I think understanding that customer onion.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Back to crying.
Back to crying. Yeah. I think that is the key, isn't it? And then developing a plan from that for each of those onion layers, as it were.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it will become clearer when we share the template for it. But having I guess it was an example of we're a subsystem supplier into a prime, then acknowledging each of the customers or end users or users community in each of those layers.
Okay.
So it's very detailed, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely the first step in terms of understanding what that we would call it the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And then potentially if there are end users for that organisation community, something then
Yeah.
looking at what they would need, because we know that the prime would have a bid into an end customer
end,
that needs to be understood.
Yeah. Okay.
As well.
Yeah.
I think that's the first step.
Yeah, we talk a lot to our clients about, this first stage of preparation and ensuring you have a quite a solid foundation before you then launch into the market. And it's all about understanding, yes, your capability, but unless you understand where there's a demand and whether there's a need for your capability, you may be selling into the wrong area. So it's time spent on that preparation, on understanding your end customer, understanding the need is absolutely critical, and it's not something that you can curtail, I don't think.
Yep, I agree. Yep, definitely.
Okay. So I think we're wrapping up this episode.
Yeah, no, it's been a good one, Stu. From your reflections, what's the formula for moving from interesting capability to credible defence partner?
Yeah. So I think we've covered the fact that you have got to make sure you prove it in an operational environment. So whether that's a prototype or a minimal via product, but you get it in front of a customer and you prove that. You may have the opportunity to do that through funding from DASA programs or prime research and development. You may have to put your hand in your pocket and do it and sort of have some upfront investment, but you've got to prove it in that environment. You've got to be able to show how you're going to advance from, if is a prototype or it's a lower TRL and MRL level, you've got to show that pathway. How are you going to do it? What's the timeline that you've got to do it, and whether you've got a plan for it. So that's key, because at that stage it is just an interesting capability. It's not an end defence product. You've got to demonstrate that you can deliver. And deliver on time. And the only way you do that is through prior experience and performance and case studies. You talked about sort of references from people before. You can do that. But also, it's not all about the technology. It's having robust commercial systems and processes that you then get confidence from the client that you are able to deliver. So it really is a holistic package of your technology, your program and planning, your project management, and also your commercial aspects. So it's a team. It's a team effort.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think we've said, haven't we, that I guess from a bid perspective, the bid is only the visible part. And it was, I guess, an interesting conundrum, because the bid is quite a stressful endeavour at times, but it's like the swan on the water analogy, isn't it? That the bid may be the swan, but underneath that there's so much going on
underneath the surface.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that, as you've said, the key groundwork is understanding the customer and their issues, and shaping that into the value proposition and building those really good relationships, which is all about capture. And that's what turns our interest in technology into a contract ready offer. So I think we wrap up. The formula is clear. We translate capability into defence language, secure compliance, and showcase people and processes.
Absolutely. Okay, so next time we'll dive into episode 3, what a good technical proposal looks like. How do you shape your offering in such a way that it makes it a really winning bid? That's it from us.
Great.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Okay, so that's it for today's episode of Advance to Contract, where we help SMEs navigate into the defence landscape with clarity, confidence and purpose.
So if you found today's discussion useful, don't forget to subscribe, share it with your network and leave us a review. And if you've got questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, we'd really like to hear from you. You can download our top tips and resources from the website link in the episode description.
Thank you for listening. And remember, every big contract starts with a single conversation. Until next time, keep advancing.